Hey everybody, this is Tiffany McCollins, and I am going over my lit review or my review of lit for assignment 5. So the study that I'm doing is called The Impact of Virtual Classroom Breaks on Middle School Students' Fitness and Academics Performance, a 4-week intervention. The research question was, how do short increments of physical activity impact students in the academic classroom? So the purpose of this study was to examine the effectiveness of a 4-week intervention, 15 minutes, through the use of an Xbox One Connect based classroom physical activity program with middle school students, on their physical activity levels, their fitness levels, their attitudes towards fitness, and their attitudes towards physical activity and their cognitive performance. The hypothesis or the theory is that the participation of our experimental condition group will have a positive impact on their school day physical activity level, their fitness level, their attitude towards physical activity, and their cognitive performance. So, getting down to our research setting, we did this study at Power Center Academy, which is in East Memphis off of Winchester and Ridgeway. Power Center Academy sits within New Direction Christian Church, and they have approximately 200 plus students in grades 6 through 8. They also have a high school, but that does sit in a different location. The Power Center Academy is part of the Gestalt Community School, which is under the umbrella of the Charter Management Group, so it is a charter school. The demographic makeup is predominantly African American, with like a small portion of the student body being on free or reduced lunch. So the sample size that we dealt with was, we had middle school students in the 8th grade. There were 94 students that participated in the study. The breakdown of that was 52 girls and 42 boys. We took 26 girls and 20 boys and which they were broken down by classes, because at Power Center Academy, each class, they have all boys classes and then all girls classes, and they may have like 5 classes per grade, 5 or 6 classes per grade. So again, we took 26 girls and 20 boys, 2 separate classes, and put them in the control group, and then we took the other 26 girls and then 22 boys and put them in the experimental group. Going into testing, before we got started with the actual intervention, we had to collect some baseline data. So we did a pre-test that included a survey, so some basic questions about their current fitness level, how they feel about physical activity, how much physical activity, and this is always based off of a scale that said, based off of a scale. They also did a digit symbol test where they were given 2 minutes to match the symbol in the box, and they had to do it where each time they wrote a symbol down, they had to put it in the box in a straight line, and they couldn't skip rows. They had to go in order to for the entire 2 minutes and see how many they can get done within those 2 minutes. They also had a math test that was comprised of 30 questions, but each test, there are 4 different versions of the test passed out. So there was an A, B, C, and a D, and students were given 2 minutes also to complete that component. See how many of the math questions that they would get correct. And then after completing those 3 items, the students were given the fitness gram, which is a battery test to test the overall fitness level to see where a person is or a student is currently, and then you do a retest to see where they are after you conduct your study. So the fitness gram test battery included the pacer test, which is basically a line test where they keep running until they run on a whistle or cadence, and they keep running until they can't run anymore. And when they stop, then the number of lines that they ran will be calculated. The curl up test is basically where each student had to they had to lie on the floor, and we put tape or a band underneath them, so they had to curl up and reach to the other side of the tape or the band, and that would be counted as one. And it was also on a cadence. The push-up test was on a cadence as well, and then the sit and reach to test their flexibility. After the pre-test with all of those components, the students were then started the intervention. The intervention was conducted for 4 weeks, and after the 4 weeks was over, the students were given the post-test, which was the exact same format as the pre-test. So, what happened or the rationale for the study? So, the rationale for the study was to increase focus on improving test scores and academic achievement, which school administrators are continuously trying to assess and evaluate curriculum. So it kind of brought us to the point of the intervention. Within the intervention, the students had the experimental group participated in the Xbox study, which was comprised of like five activities, like cardio kickboxing, beach body workout circuit, all through virtual gaming. And they would do that for like 15 minutes during the school day. They also were given accelerometers to wear around their waist at the beginning of the day, and they had to wear them throughout the school day, and give them back a few minutes before they would dismiss for the day. The accelerometers were we kept up with the amount of activity that each student, the 20 students that had on the accelerometers, we kept up with the amount of time and activity that they participated in through the day as part of our study. So then that kind of brings us to the lit review. So the lit review focused on research that had been conducted to support or falsify the theory of short increments of physical activity having impact on physical activity levels, physical fitness, cognitive performance, and knowledge through virtual activity. I broke my review of lit down into several components based on current research. The following topics were discussed in my review of lit: exergaming, academic classroom, and physical activity breaks, student activity levels, student physical fitness improvements, students' attitudes towards physical activity, student cognitive knowledge, and the impact of physical activity in the academic classroom. Now, I'm going to kind of give an overview of each component within the review of lit. Exergaming is a new trend that combines both physical activity and technology. Research suggests that exergames can produce moderate to vigorous physical activity results, along with positive physiological results through the use of video game consoles such as the Nintendo Wii or the Xbox Connect or the Microsoft Connect. Extra gaming tends to promote fun, social interaction, motivation, and freedom of choice for both students and adults. There have been few studies that have been done on extra gaming, but the ones that have done studies on extra gaming, because it is so new, have been successful. In the academic classroom and physical activity break, research states that there's a possibility that maintaining a high level of physical education might be helpful for improving academic performance in students. One of the studies showed that 16% of school districts require regular physical activity breaks, which excludes recess and PE during the school day. However, that percentage is decreasing as students continue to get older and go on to middle school and high school. Researchers also talked about incorporating energizers, which are short classroom-based physical activity component that provides opportunity to increase daily physical activity. But again, they had one of the results was that physical activity breaks can increase on-task behavior. So basically what this says is, or what research is saying is that physical activity breaks in the academic classroom, it can really deter students from, having behavioral issues and stuff like that. So it kind of gives them a moment to let out some of the energy that they have built up because they've been sitting for quite some time. The activity levels in students, which was one of the third component, is we talked about children spending 6 or more hours of their day in school. So research suggests that 30 minutes of this time be devoted to some type of physical activity so that they can increase the physical activity level. Research also states that elementary school is the ideal setting to improve physical activity levels in children as they continue to move forward in school. Other studies suggest that students with higher activity levels were less likely to miss school or do poorly on standardized tests, which kind of bring me to a point that I found in our research study. During the testing component, it was very hard for the pre-test and the post-test to get that done, and it took a little longer than we wanted because students were absent or late to school every day that we were there. So we were trying to track down students, so that we can have all of the data that we needed. But of course, that wasn't going to be the case all the time for, not just for us, but for people, that do other studies. So going back to the review of LIT, the physical fitness improvement component, according to research, FitnessGram is the tool that is most commonly used to help improve students' physical fitness level, which is also the tool that we use to do our pre-test and our post-test. These improvements were suggested to be based on participating in regular physical activity, which is a necessity for preventative behavior for youth to reduce developing disease, but while increasing the quality of life. Moving to the attitudes that students have towards physical activity, what I found is that researchers state that learning how children perceive and feel and evaluate attitudes is key to improving their disposition and participation in physical activity. Historically, elementary and secondary students have the most positive attitudes towards physical education and physical activity in school. Now, going into the cognitive component, one of the researchers, Salas, and his group of research friends found that there was less of a decline in academic performance for students enrolled in physical education compared to non-enrolled students, but there wasn't a significant academic increase for the enrolled students. But then there's another researcher by the name of Shepard, who found that elementary school children in particular score higher on achievement tests when they are enrolled in additional physical education. So there has been other research that has shown that physical activity can increase cognitive functioning in like reaction time and response to accuracy, or as well as students' ability to concentrate. So that's always good and always a plus. So the impact that physical activity has is that physical activity specifically has improved students' behavior, or has been known to improve students' behavior, concentration, recognition, memory, math skills, reading, writing in the classroom setting, according to research. There's been several studies that have shown how classroom-based physical activity programs can effectively improve behavior and increase school physical activity and overall physical activity for students. Interventions also, according to research, can be positive in integrating physical activity into everyday routines for children, which have demonstrated modest but consistent benefits through the use of physical activity. Now, going back to the study, what we found, some of the key findings that we found were that students in the experimental condition throughout the study were challenged with that 4-week intervention. The experimental group was more sedentary throughout the day in comparison to the control group, but the experimental group was also more involved in moderate to vigorous physical activity throughout the day than the control group, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron, because if you're saying they're sedentary, then they weren't doing much. But when they did do something, it was way more than what the control group did on the average. So with that being said, we found that the experimental group was significantly more affected by the intervention. To conclude, the impact of physical activity on students in the academic classroom is an issue that will continue to be researched. With the revolutionizing of technology and the integrating of technology in the academic classroom, students can be exposed to a lot more. Virtual activity is a positive and fun way for students to take a break from learning. However, students are still going to be learning in the process. Exergaming allows students to use their cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains all at the same time. And again, it is a fun way to increase physical activity amongst students, which will give them that recommended 60 minutes of physical activity in each day. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the discussion box, and I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Thanks again. I'm Tiffany McCollins, signing off.